I wasn't willing to give up. As a business owner, what I believe is that we're always going to be facing conflicts.
What kind of mindset do you go in? Like you're standing on the other side of the door from a potentially a professional tenant. What kind of mindset do you have going in and talking to those tenants?
What's one of your more challenging stories? If you can give us a little bit of an insight into sort of the day-to-day work of you going in and mediating something between a tenant and a landlord.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of stories that I'm very grateful to attend.
Welcome to the TNT Real Estate Podcast, where we spark conversations that set you up for real estate success. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Tanya, and each week we bring you expert tips on navigating Northern Ontario's real estate market. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, we've got the tools to help you thrive. Today's episode is a special one. We're diving into the world of mediation, communication, and navigating one of the toughest parts about being a landlord, which is conflict. But our guest doesn't just manage conflict. He helps people repair relationships, protect their investments, and avoid years of LTB issues.
So we're so excited to have Alvin Wong. He is the founder of TLM, which is Tenant Landlord Mediation. It's a consulting service based, Southern Ontario, and he goes all over Ontario helping landlord and tenant communication, basically. So a little bit about Alvin. He's a former ER nurse. He's a real estate investor. He's a mediator. And if you've seen his Instagram, you know that this man's out dodging butter knives, negotiating peaceful exits, and he still has time to close on properties and climb mountains. And I'm not joking. We're just talking about this, Kilimanjaro. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but thank you for coming on and welcome.
Thanks, Tanya and Tyler. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start with this. We kind of gave our listeners a little bit of a snapshot about what you do, but how would you describe what you do?
Yeah, so with tenant landlord mediation, it's compared to what the paralegal and the lawyers do. We are here to mediate. We go firsthand in person, talk to the tenants to see if we can find a common ground between them and the landlord to find a solution, rectify the problem so that nobody needs to go to court. And what I noticed that there's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of information that we don't know ahead. My role is to go personal and a human level to find out what is the motivation, what is the root cause, and how we can rectify that problem so nobody needs to go to court.
So how did you kind of get started in this business? Because as Tyler mentioned, you started off as an ER nurse in your career. So how did you move from that into the mediation business in your day-to-day today?
Or even start with the investing side of it for sure.
Yeah, so it all started with me being laid off as a registered nurse, something that I would never had imagined. I thought that if I went into a very safe, comfortable healthcare, I'm good. But it turns out that there is a very high chance that you can still get laid off. And that's what happened to me. So during my journey of finding myself, trying to figure out what the next step is after nursing, I decided to want to protect myself. And what I found out throughout my journey, I found out that I have to be more financially literate so that I can protect myself. So the next layoff, I'll be okay. And that's how I started. At first, I was trying to dabble with, stocks. Didn't know anything about that, so I knew that was out of the question. Bitcoin was very new at that time. I started investing back in 2020, so that's during the close to peak of pandemic. And I realized that, Bitcoin wasn't my thing either, so what's next? So I came across a network that focuses on real estate, and that's how my journey all started. I started to learn from someone who is expert in real estate. From there, it's just snowballed, and I started to invest into real estate myself. Learn the ropes, not just from my mentor, but also learn the painful route, sink and swim. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I was investing in Windsor, And I learned a lot from this property. It was a duplex. I didn't screen well. I was a typical novice, want to be friends with all my tenants. And I inherited, in Ontario, you inherit tenants if you purchase a property that they currently live in. So I inherited the tenant. I didn't do a good job screening the individual. Yes, you still have to screen that individual. And I realized that this is an individual that purposely do not pay the previous landlord. So I'm the new landlord, so he purposely did not pay me rent. And we went through the whole 1 year court just to have him removed. And then he somehow found a loophole in the Ontario system in the L2B, Landlord Tenant Board, and that allowed him to appeal to go to the divisional court, which is even higher. The Supreme Court of Ontario, basically, divisional court.
Wow.
So that's when I realized that, oh wow, like we are really in trouble. Like, and because of my nursing experience and also my 5 years of real estate experience, I realized that there was a huge need for mediation. Mediation is not about evicting people. Mediation is to connect with the individual, find out the root cause, find out a solution, so nobody needs to go through the daunting LTB. Ontario Landlord Tenant Board should be doing all this, but unfortunately, like I have to take care of myself, my own investment property. I have to step in to do what's best for my portfolio, my investments, and also my future. So I had to take matters in my own hands. So I decided to talk to my tenants over the years of my investment, and I realized that it's so simple. It's just a human connection, human conversation, and trying to make them understand we're here to work with you. Even though you're not paying me rent or destroying my property, but I still want to communicate with you. Can we come up with a solution so that it benefits both sides? And that's how TLM, Tenant Landlord Mediation, was born.
That's awesome. So that's a really tough lesson to learn on your first investment.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's plenty of other lessons that, I mean, you can learn, or you even learned from that property. So what was the factor that you kind of decided, okay, I'm going to keep this moving and I'm going to buy my second property? Because I feel like a lot of people would have bought that first property, discovered what you would have discovered, and you know the stuff that goes on with the landlord tenant boards and all the issues, and then they would have said, this is not for me. Like Bitcoin's not fine. I'm going back to Bitcoin after that.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Okay, this, you know what, this is a lesson learned instead of this is going to crumble my investment journey.
Yeah.
And like what pushed you to buy like number 2 property?
Yeah, that's a very great question. I think it was just my resilience. Mm-hmm. I wasn't willing to give up. Yeah. As a business owner, I consider myself as an entrepreneur, business owner. I think like what I believe is that we're always going to be facing conflicts. To me, this is just one of those conflicts. And I didn't see it as the end of the world. This is a learning lesson for me. What I took home from that day, like that was the worst day of my life. It was my very first investment property. Didn't go the way how smoothly that I had someone to guide me through it. I did all the networking. I've done all the research that's necessary, and I still came into an issue. And I don't fault any of that. It was the best thing I've done to get lessons, finding out a little bit more about financially and all that stuff, because this is the basic fundamental principle of how to invest and be a business owner. But what I believe is that when you go out there, the real lesson begins when you start making mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, and I tell all my fellow investors, landlords, and also my clients, like this is not the end of the world. This is a learning mistake. In fact, I learned so much from this property. It gave me the ability so that I will be able to scale. I went from 1 property in less than 2 years, scale to 5 properties because I learned from this mistake. I learned how to screen tenants properly. I learned who the right people that I want to work with. I learned to communicate better. And out of nowhere, not only did I create an investment company, but I also developed TLM was born as well too, all because of that huge mistake. Mm-hmm. Like there were times that I didn't sleep well. There were times that I probably I went in the corner and just want to hide under a rock. These are all experiences that I don't think anybody in textbook or anyone can teach you. And when I go and see my fellow clients, landlords and investors that are going through the same issue as me, especially the mom and pop stores here in Sudbury that are being taken advantage of the professional tenants, there is a stronger connection between myself and the landlord because I understand how it felt. Like I understand that sleepless night. I understand how your money is going down drain. And I understand the urgency of have to have the tenant removed quickly as soon as possible so that you can recover. But there's a process to it, and it's a very painful process. And that's why, because I learned from all those mistakes, I'm able to transfer them and help fellow landlords.
That's a really good point. A lot of us spend money going to school, getting an education. We spend tens of thousands of dollars every year to get an education, right? And it is terrible to have to lose money this way and to learn a lesson that can be so expensive. But at the same time, like you said, it becomes a learning opportunity for you. You get the best education by making some mistakes. And we always tell our kids too, they should, learn to fail a little bit, fail forward, make some mistakes, learn from them, grow, take what you can from it to better yourself and better your next steps, right? I think that's such a great opportunity to look at mistakes that we make. As long as you can get through it financially, it's really tough. And I know some people are facing a lot of hardships when they do, get into the situation with a professional tenant who may stop paying rent and then unfortunately sometimes even destroy a place. But it's nice to know that you've learned from that and that you're taking that sort of connection piece, right? And working towards building a connection with tenants and landlords and seeing where you can sort of bridge that gap. I think it's a really nice way to look at it and see how you can solve somebody's problem.
Yeah, it really is. And I have to say, I owe my whole entire journey and my business, everything to my nursing career. Nursing, for all the healthcare providers that's listening to this, you guys are some of the best business entrepreneurs out there because it takes a person to be composed in a very tough scenario. Like when I'm in Emerge, I'm seeing people I have 5 patients. They're at any time, any one of them could crash. You have to be composed. And then you're going to have people that's multitasking. People are going to ask you to do this and do that. You have to politely tell them in an assertive way to say, no, I got to attend to this person first, like that. And be all organized. And that's exactly how I developed all that skills. Everything, it wasn't just investment. It was also I dedicate my nursing career that helped me as well too.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I mean, it kind of taught you the resilient mindset that you're kind of talking about, but let's go back into your mediation business a little bit. So what sort of, I mean, we kind of did talk about mindset, but is there a mindset that you have? I mean, we were talking just before we started shooting, about pump up songs and stuff, but what kind of mindset do you go in? You're standing on the other side of the door from potentially a professional tenant. What kind of mindset do you have going in and talking to those tenants?
Yeah, I think for myself, I'm just having a general discussion with them. We're just, it's like you having a conversation with a friend. That's how I'm always framing myself. No, they're not my friend. I understand that. I'm just saying as an example. Yep. But, in order to get yourself in that headspace, because once you go through that door and start talking to the individual, there's going to be a lot of emotions. My job is to be not emotional. And the reason why, it's not that the landlord cannot do this themselves, but the issue is that so much emotion because your life saving is in the tenant's hands, and that's not comfortable. Your property at any moment, the next day after talking to the tenant, can destroy your property even more. There's so many factors, and that's why landlords get so emotional. And as soon as they become too emotional and start talking to the tenant in a wrong way, it's not their fault. It's just the emotions. It can upset the tenant, and the tenant will slam the door in their face, and then there won't be any communication. My role is to make sure that communication remains stable, so that both sides can continue talking, coming back to the bargaining table, negotiation table, and work something out before everyone goes to court. Okay. Because it doesn't benefit for a tenant, it doesn't benefit for a landlord, it benefits nobody. Everything gets stalled. LTB now in Sudbury, it's around 6 to 7 months, but in other cities, it's daunting as 12 months.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize there was quite that difference between jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every single municipality is not consistent. Mm-hmm. And the worst part is every single adjudicator has their own ways of doing things, you know? So you can't just because the adjudicator here in Sudbury, it's what it is, it's going to be different. The experience is different. If you invest in other city, the adjudicator does things a little differently, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to having that mediation, it's basically the same thing as real estate. Like when you're going back and forth on clients, your clients are getting a little bit emotional. The sellers or the other opposite buyers are, it's basically the same thing. They tell us their true feelings, and we wrap that up with a bow on it and then present that to the other side, right? So it kind of takes that emotion out of it, and you kind of get more back to business, right? So,
Absolutely, yeah.
So before we came to the studio, we were talking about mentorship and learning from mistakes, certainly. So you mentioned a lot about mentors and coaches that you've had in your business and your own personal growth. So can you talk a little bit more about what that mentorship and what that coaching did for you in your life and in your business, growing it?
Yeah, so I can only reflect back into my experience. Everyone is different. How people see mentor and how people work with mentor is going to be very different. What I share is based on, again, my experience, and anyone who's relatable might feel free to reach out to me. So with myself, I'm a registered nurse by background, like I mentioned. We don't, throughout our whole entire career and leading towards being a nurse, we never really had the opportunity to exercise financial literacy. You know, you can give us a heart, you can give us a lung, we can dissect it for you easily. But when it comes to money, we are very, very challenged on this. I hate to say this to my fellow healthcare providers. The truth is, it is true. So I knew from that moment that if I was to protect myself, I need to be more sound in finances. And at first, I wanted to do it myself because I believe in the sink and swim method, you know. But however, I thought about it. I was like, well, you know what? How do I get there? Like 10 exit, 5 exit, like get there faster, you know? Because I'm already behind. I'm already like mid career in my nursing. I don't have much time left. I want to move things faster. I want to start learning. So I decided to, you know what? It's just for myself, my personal self. It just makes sense for me to find someone who is an expert in what I want to do. In this case, real estate. So I went around, networked, and I decided to ask fellow who are now my peers that who is the best person that can teach me what you guys learned so that they can teach me so that I can do just as well as you. And that's exactly what happened. My journey started off as learning from a mentor. And the way how I see it is that I'm just going back to school again, you know, just a school that is not labeled as a university or college, you know. I'm just going to a private school, you know. That's how I see it mentally wise and also mindset wise. And you know what? It was to me, it really benefited. Like I didn't even know. Like this is so embarrassing. I don't even know what ROI is. I don't even know. And in real estate, I don't even know what a gutter is. That's how embarrassing it is. You know. But you know, I learned all that in a span of 3 years. You know, and in 3 years, like I mentioned, that 3 years was the best thing that ever happened because not only was mentorship helped me learn the finances, the basic 101 of real estate, but it also grew my network as well too. So I find that in that mentorship program, you meet fellow peers. From that fellow peers, the peers starts to let other people know about you. And from there, now all across Ontario, anyone who touches real estate may know me, but I'm still working on that. But in general, I have to say I'm very confident that most of Ontario people know about me, and that makes my life so much easier when I decide to do my business, whatever I want to do that's related to real estate. It just makes it so much easier. So there's a lot of, in my opinion, there was a lot of benefit, not just from the aspect of learning the theory part of real estate, but also the network part was so powerful as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been following you since, I feel like almost since you started, like back in like 2019, 2020, when like all of this craziness started happening in Sudbury, and lots of the investors were starting to come up here. So I've been following your story for a long time, and it's very impressive. But what would you say to like a rookie? Let's go back a little bit. So a rookie investor, maybe they're looking for their first property or maybe trying to make that jump to a second property. Yeah. What do you think, like, and everybody talks about like analysis paralysis, but what are the things that you're walking through a property? What are you looking for?
Yeah. So the way how I see properties may be different for others. Okay, the role as an investor is to make money. Let's just be as simple as that. Okay, so what makes money? Well, I mean, you have to first study the market. What is the trend? Like you go to, I was just talking to Tanya and Tyler not long ago. You know, we were talking about Southern Ontario. Well, how much are the houses in Southern Ontario? What's the price of the houses in Sudbury and Northern Ontario? So once you understand that market, then you have to understand whether it makes sense on the buy that you make cash flow, which is making money. Mm-hmm. So if you have no cash flow, the next thing you can do, just this is an example, there's many ways to make money onto the buy, is to find more units, right? So, I mean, for myself, you know, after doing my research on finding the demographic of the city where I want to invest in this case, Sudbury, the next thing I want to find out is whether or not, what is the rent amount? Because Southern Ontario rents are different than Northern Ontario rents. The third thing I would want to look for is how many units can I get that can get that same amount of rent that I project. And from there, it's no-brainer. You can find out whether you're making money or not. So I can tell you right now, in Southern Ontario, they're a lot more expensive. So that means you have a couple options. You know, this is just a couple options. There's more, obviously. You can increase the rent, or you can have more units. But now you have to find out how fast and how the condition is, whether or not you can get that. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you go to Sudbury, on the other hand, there are still a lot of multifamily properties, and the rents are very attractive. Yeah.
So you find you invested mostly in Sudbury. Is that where you hold most of your property investments?
As of today, yes. All my properties are located in Sudbury.
Yeah. Do you find the return on investment when you're doing that analysis, looking at different communities? I imagine you looked at other communities outside
Correct.
of Sudbury and Northern Ontario. Did you find that sort of the ROI was the best here, was the most achievable? Was our price point maybe the easiest to get into, the easiest entry point?
Yeah. So that's another level of like analyzing demographic of the market that you're investing into. So what you're talking about right now is the price point. You're talking about rents, but you also have to factor into industries as well too, because your main source of income is from the rents. So if you go to any city, random city that's even more outskirt than Sudbury, like we're going to talk about, like for example, the first thing that comes to mind is Wawa. Okay, like is there industry there? Because you need to attract good tenants. You need to have tenants, right? So in Sudbury, we have industry. We have schools. We have governments. We have hospitals. And then you go even more deeper. I'm even gonna go deeper into this. Like Sudbury is the core of Northern Ontario. So I was talking to Tyler a while ago. What happens? I'm a healthcare provider, so this is all healthcare stuff, but it's very relatable to investment as well too. So people who require MRIs, people who require cancer treatments, well, if they're in a remote area of Northern Ontario, then where's the next city they have to go to? Well, they're gonna come to Sudbury, right? Mm-hmm. So now you have tenants that needs a place to stay while their loved ones is in the hospital, right? So now you have a different type of industry. But as an investor, you need to diversify in terms of industries. That's why it's very important that when you look at the market, you need to find out whether there's if there's any university, colleges. You need to find out whether there's a hospital. You need to find out if there's government workers. Government workers are bulletproof jobs for the most part. Yep.
Yeah.
So these are diversification. That is what makes your market stabilize, and that's why Sudbury was very attractive to me.
Okay, so I would say that you were now an experienced investor. I don't know how you label yourself or how other people would label you, but I would say you're experienced. What would an experienced investor, you have now 5 properties in Sudbury, what are you looking for next? What's your next investment? And then also, let's say, what do your next 5 years look like?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that compliment, Tyler. 5 properties, in my opinion, is like so like small, but I've seen some people that have multiple property and diversification. So I see myself as an intermediate. I'm trying to reach that experience level. So thank you for that. But definitely for sure, my goal is it's pretty ambitious, you know. I do want to start getting into bigger buildings. Right now, what I invest into is more residentials, 4 units. That's the highest I've gone up to. But I do want to start dabbling and exploring bigger properties. So like we're talking about 5 and up, and start using more creative finances. Once you get into those bigger buildings, there's so much creativity. Like we're talking about financial creativity and so much. What do you call it? Like so much different type of renovations to be more creative. So to get more, not just income, but also filling up more tenant space so that you're addressing not only to the housing crisis, but you're also building true generational wealth from that. So definitely for sure want to scale up with larger properties. And I definitely, like I mentioned, TLM is one of my my business that I'm trying to grow. TLM is a mediation company that I really see that it can benefit the whole entire Ontario. And I even thought about going even nationally, and eventually, like I see myself, anytime there's a bad tenant, it can go anywhere across other international, like such as the States, you know. I know there's some provinces in Canada, such as the BC, you know, they would definitely, I've already been reached out, but it's just at this moment, it's just too far. And I also need to be mindful not to thin myself out. But I haven't forgotten about BC yet. There are people out there that are indeed need my service. And I'm working. I just want to let you guys know that I am getting to you guys. It's just that I want to make sure that I don't thin myself out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a long ways to travel for a couple jobs. But is there any barrier to working as a mediator in other provinces, or can you can pretty much do this business and run it in various provinces?
Yeah, the mediation profession is it's not accredited. What I mean by not accredited means that it's not governed by a college. So that means anyone can I can practice it.
Okay.
So I have no restrictions, but there are certain scope of practices that I would not cross. I'm constantly talking to paralegal and lawyers. Paralegals and lawyers they do work with me. We all work together. Because there's a lot of things that the paralegal and lawyer is referring me to for some of the paralegal and the lawyers are referring clients to me because the main reason is because they are focused in the court, whereas me, I focus outside of the court.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it get to that.
Hopefully,
that
I was going to say preventing actually having to go into the courtroom.
Exactly.
And just dealing with it ahead of time.
Exactly. With the lawyers and the paralegal, how my service benefit is that they can focus on the more pressing issue in the court, and also help them focus on the stuff that needs the most time. Whereas if they feel like this can be resolved really quick, they rather have me to deal with it. And that's exactly my partnership with paralegals and lawyers been happening. Yeah.
So you work a lot with paralegals, lawyers, and of course landlords and tenants. Mm-hmm. What's one of your more challenging stories? If you can give us a little bit of an insight into sort of the day-to-day work of you going in and mediating something between a tenant and a landlord.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's a lot of stories that I'm very grateful to attend. Not that it's something that I hope everyone goes through, you know, but it's a story for myself only that it fulfills me, you know. The one that fulfills me that I'm very proud of was there was a situation where I was told to go into a unit that was supposed to be a family. So like I was assuming it's just 4. But when I got in there, it turned out there was 10 tenants in there.
That's a big family.
I don't think it was a family. My information was not accurate. And it's not the landlord's fault. The landlord is investing elsewhere. So it's a long distance investment. So they don't know exactly what's happening in their property. They only probably got told that it was supposed to be a family, but obviously it's not. So when I got there, it was 10 people there. And when I was going into the kitchen, I saw 10 people surrounding the stove. So I look over the shoulder of one of the tenants and I see that they are boiling, growing chemistry, meth, on an oven top. And now
Some family activity.
No, that's a family business right there.
It is.
it's so
Wow.
fun. And they were all they were so concentrating on growing this chemistry that they're no longer looking at this. They're now turning their heads towards me. And my mission was to get every single one of them out, to negotiate with them.
I thought
to
your
have
mission
them,
was going to
you know.
be to get out of there, like to turn around and run. So you went and you spoke to them after this.
I spoke to every single one of them. We were all in one room. It was the most uncomfortable thing because the stove was no longer in the middle. I was in the middle. Everyone surrounded me, and there was no way for me to leave the house. It was either I get this thing done or I don't leave. That's how I felt. So that was my most. It was the most accomplishing thing because everyone had their own opinion. Everyone had their own story. I was able to connect the dots. I was able to relate every single one of their messages, and I was able to have them all on board for them to all sign the form, which is N11. This is the agreement to part ways with the landlord. And that's,
Wow.
So 10 and 11 signed that day.
Okay, that is impressive. To do that kind of work under what I would think is a bit of duress, like a little bit of heat on you to get it done.
Yeah.
You did it that day.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
would have walked away. That's crazy.
Okay, so one final question for you, Alvin. Just in this is more personal. You've conquered Kilimanjaro. You've done your Spartan races.
Yes.
You've done everything basically. So what's next on your physical side?
So I still want to keep up with the physical side. I'm actually considering, it's a little scary, but I need to do it. I'm actually going to be training for the triathlon. So I have a friend that's into that, so I'm not alone. So I know that triathlon will be the next thing that I will be doing.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. For our listeners and obviously watchers, where can people find you on social media if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so Instagram is the best way to connect with me. My Instagram tag is TL Mediation. And in TL Mediation Instagram, you'll be able to see my bio. It'll have the link. Click on that, 15-minute discovery call on the house. Let's chat.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Alvin. We really appreciate your time, and we all, I think, have learned so much from you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the TNT podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to leave us a comment, subscribe, and share with a friend who might be interested in real estate.
We'll catch you next time, and until then, stay ahead in real estate.